So, Saturday night, we saw Tyson Fury lose a split decision over 12 rounds to Oleksandr Usyk. We are going to discuss the fallout from the fight. But I want to start off by taking us back to our initial predictions. Obviously, you predicted the fight, right? Did you predict it that it would be to Usyk by points?
I said decision, but I said I wouldn't be surprised if you got him out of there later on. It was one of those things where I said I'm struggling to even imagine Fury being out because he feels quite an indestructible bloke. But it was just the possibility of if you're getting dropped in quite more frequently, the older you get, you're getting dropped a bit more. But like part of that is the anomaly of Deontay Wilder. But the Francis Ngannou one, I think if he can hit you a lot more, he may be able to get him out of there. He nearly fucking did, but fair play to Fury. Even after I feel like the referee wrongly stepped in, I can't take away anything from the recovery powers. I mean, it's insane that he was able to carry on and make the end of the fight.
Is that like when you look at those recovery powers? Because I think that most people would argue that in certain fights, Fury will get the benefit of the doubt, and obviously, I would probably argue the other side of saying, yes, but when a fighter has shown you that they've got these recovery powers and the ability to come back from it, is that not why he gets the benefit of the doubt sometimes? Because I think that on the night, you were sort of alluding to the fact that you could have seen a stoppage there, really. You could have seen the ref jump in.
Well, I've definitely seen fights waved off for far less. And it's sometimes how graphic it is. Like, if you take a few punches and you stumble, that's one thing. It was the fact that he was bouncing from rope to rope. It looks really bad.
Do you remember the old DVD screensaver when it used to hit? Yeah.
People have clipped that up and said it's a bit like Fury. Oh. But because it looked bad, my thing was, when the referee intervened, Fury was still technically on his feet, and Usyk has his hand back. And we know when you're really at that point of like all ready to go, it doesn't take that many more, and potentially one more, and he's out. I think the referee could have allowed that extra shot. Him not doing that, and as it just so happened, not only buying him the 8 count, but then the end of the round, and then more minutes go by. I don't know. I just feel like. I'm not saying that it was corruption. I just think Fury got quite lucky in that moment.
It's funny because I remember saying to you that one of the reasons why I didn't think an Usyk stoppage would be at all likely is the fact that when you see Tyson Fury being dropped, it's always with someone that is willing to commit with him. Whether it is Steve Cunningham jumping in with a looping right hand, whether it's Deontay Wilder throwing his hips and his body weight into something, or whether it's just Francis Ngannou holding his ground in a moment that other heavyweights would probably choose to step back. To be able to get to Fury, there is an element of having to commit. And what you said to me at the time was, yeah, and that's a valid point, but also none of these guys will be able to then follow up and have continued success in the way that Usyk's going to be able to. Yeah. And that was the sort of sliding doors moment for me when I realised that Usyk as a finisher is probably massively underrated and will continue to be underrated because he didn't get Fury out of there. But what we normally see is Fury dropped or Fury rocked, and we don't see the accumulation of punches come anywhere near the amount of times that Usyk was able to nail him once he had been hit.
And I actually have to say, I've actually got more admiration for Fury's chin after that than before. And people might go, well, you got rocked, so why? But like... in round 8, if you rewatch round 8, when he gets his nose smashed, but only not just that, there's this 1-2 that Usyk hits him with that's reminiscent of what hurts him in the round 9, the round after. And you're looking and like, how did you not go from that? Like, Fury was going around before, in my opinion. Like, there were signs of what was to come, but he was withstanding so much punishment. And I feel like it's insane what this man has taken. And you just wonder, like, how many more of those have you got in you? Because ultimately, as fighters, they only can have that, like, the chin check that many times before it eventually starts going and going and going, because your brain can't continue to withstand the trauma, and it will just shut down as a self-preservation mechanism. So as much as I'm giving Fury credit, you don't want to see him do too many more fights like that.
Were you surprised by the way that Usyk came out? Because when we spoke about the fight, in a roundabout way, we kind of predicted how the fight would go in terms of Usyk starting fast, Fury picking up middle rounds, Usyk finishing strong. But obviously it was a far cry from how we thought it would go. The main thing that surprised me from the opening bell was the aggression of Oleksandr Usyk. We know that Oleksandr Usyk is sometimes mislabeled as a back foot fighter, which is hard to sometimes see where that comes from, because a lot of the time he's not fighting on the back foot.
He moves a lot, but he's not running away from you. He's right in front of you and he's just moving side to side, right? But he didn't do as much lateral movement in this fight, actually. No. So what was interesting is his aggression was similar to the past, but different in that his foot position was very aggressive. I'm right here in your face. But he didn't throw as many tippy-tappy range finders as he did against AJ. And he threw less punches, but they had more meat on them.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see Usyk from the get-go a little bit more like the Dubois fight in that, well, these punches, I'm not going to throw as many, but they're going to be bad intentions and they're going to be here to try and get you out of there. And that alone, like for Usyk to have the self-belief of, I'm going to try and knock you out, was impressive.
I think seeing Tyson Fury put on the back foot in that way, where
immediately.
Yeah, because I mean, Deontay Wilder.
Did we not think that Fury would be a bit more? I thought they'd be fighting in the middle. I thought that eventually Fury might go on the back foot, but I didn't think it would just be from the get-go.
I mean, firstly, it was a way more entertaining fight than I was preparing for. I thought that it would be a twitch fest, a bit of a bore fest for a few rounds, and actually it seemed like it caught fire pretty much straight away. Now, when you see Tyson Fury on the back foot, I've seen Tyson Fury on the back foot hundreds of times, but I've never seen him under that sustained amount of pressure. Normally he has time to work and time to compose himself. I felt, as someone that's watched every second of every round of Tyson Fury's career, I felt that Tyson Fury, and I could be wrong, felt a little bit out of his depth in the first round. And I think
I've never seen him like that in the first round.
Yeah.
Have you? Like, it gave me a false sense of security. So we both went through this in the fight, right? So round one, I'm like, he's going to fucking kill him, right? And then by round 5, 6, obviously Joey's feeling the same way. But yeah, in round one, I had never seen Fury more reactive, and that was key for me in my prediction of talking about like whoever's doing the creating and the other fighter who's the reacting, because they're both creative fighters, they're both twitchers. They want to get you responding instead of thinking of your own game plan. And it felt like Usyk put him in that state immediately. And what I was impressed with was Fury's ability to calm as the fight was going on. I thought he would get more panicked by his gas tank going. He actually warmed into the fight quite nicely.
Well, that is the probably one of the more shocking moments of the fight is after that first round, and definitely sort of on from the third round, because it was a little bit nip and tuck for the next 2 rounds. Some would favour the work rate of Usyk, some would favour a couple of cleaner shots landed by Fury, and as we predicted, there was a lot of showboating in there, a bit of showmanship, which is obviously there to sway the judges a lot of the time. From around the third round onwards, I would say that for the most part, despite, Usyk having success, Fury started to get a foothold in the fight and started to almost swing the fight and take the fight over for a couple of rounds in there. Now, the thing that surprised me the most about this is I always predicted that from around the third fight, Fury was going to swing this fight a little bit. I didn't predict that Usyk would obviously swing it back in his favour. I thought that Fury would win it. But when he did swing the fight, it didn't come from him being hyper-aggressive. And one of the criticisms we had of Anthony Joshua in both fights maybe was, you tried to box Usyk, don't try and box him. Actually, Fury tried to box him. He was clever. He invested in the body a little bit. And that really surprised me that when it was a boxing match, he even in those moments was able to have sustained success against Usyk like we hadn't seen before.
Brilliantly put, mate. And I think a lot like Tony Bellew, Anthony Joshua, and Fury now, you can outbox Usyk. It is possible. It's just that you're not going to continue to do so. And much like it was a lot like Tony Bellew, I was really impressed with how clever and slick and sneaky those little body shots where he was sinking them right under the ribs, and that was panicking me as a fan of Usyk. I was thinking, fuck me, these are good. But Usyk is so undeterred, and that's the thing that we have to also give credit for, is it's very hard to stay right in front of a man who is hurting you. He was hurting Usyk to some degree, but he's right there in your face, and he's like, yeah, you're hurting me, but you're not going to keep your shape like this at 262 pounds the way I'm going to keep my shape. So I just need to stay there, and yeah, you might win a few rounds, but you will eventually slow down. And to be fair, that was how it went. But to do that, who else can do that? And there's not 12 round fighters in the heavyweight division. These guys, AJ, Fury, they need to take a lot of rounds off to make it to the end of a fight, or take it at a very slow pace. And because Usyk is pushing that pace, yeah, you'll win rounds, but you're not going to stay with him.
And that's the other thing as well. It's like when you say about taking rounds off, that I think that's one of Usyk's best attributes, is that when he takes a round off, he doesn't take damage in taking that round off. And we used to seeing him sort of take the ninth round off. I think it was the round before he hurt Fury. I remember thinking, he's taking the round off here. He's taking the round off. And another thing that I'll touch on there when we were speaking about Usyk's vulnerabilities, are we in agreement now? That whole thing about Usyk being weak to the... It's not a thing, is it? He's not weak to the body.
Beforehand, though, I said in my prediction, like, he's has he been hurt by a body shot before? Yeah, but are we not going to allow him that in a career that's nearly 400 fights to have had moments? Like, maybe he is slightly weaker to the body than the chin, but... The point is he was able, even when taking rounds off, it sounds like you're doing nothing when we say that. Usyk has mastered the art of, he's withholding some energy, but you don't know it really. And also, he's still got a game plan that is putting you in an uncomfortable position. So his front foot pressure, his foot position was forcing Fury to throw really good punches, knowing you're working fucking hard here. And actually, this might be one of the most low output fights Usyk has done in terms of volume of punches. It's a lot more, less punches, but harder punches. So he's right in front of him, and he's forcing Fury to keep throwing. And then when he slowed down, it was open season.
Do you know what as well? Like, the judgment of when to take the round off, when to nick your rest, because 9 out of 10 fighters will decide to take the round off when they need the round off. And Usyk, it's like he preempts it and he'll take it off 2 rounds before he needs it to then, lengthen the amount of time that he's going to be able to be continuing with that amount of output.
So aware of the management of energy. Like, a lot of fighters, like you've just said, they only realise when it's too late. Whereas with him, it's almost like he's got a computer game, an energy bar in the vision, and he's like, okay, and he's managing it in a way that I don't think we've ever seen a heavyweight be that clever in managing energy throughout a fight.
If you were Tyson Fury and you were looking back on one moment that maybe you would have regret over, maybe you would pinch yourself that you didn't go for it a little bit more in that moment, would it be that uppercut that we saw, which I think was in around the 6th round? We saw 2 uppercuts in one round.
I think it was the 6th, yeah.
Yeah, one almost lifted Usyk off of the canvas a little bit. He stumbled back. It wasn't. I don't think he was out on his feet, anything like that. I don't think he was hurt. But I also think that maybe Fury overestimated whether or not he was playing possum. There was a moment when Tyson Fury had Usyk backed up to the ropes. And before we went into this fight, one of the key things we were saying about Tyson Fury being able to lean on him, maul him, use his weight and aggression and pin him on the ropes. And the big question was, will he ever get him on the ropes? So much easier said than done. I completely understand that. But would that be the moment that Tyson Fury kicks himself?
Potentially in his own mind. For me, I would disagree with that. I think the whole strategy of this fight, as I said in my prediction, the way to beat Usyk, if it's possible, you have to go out after him when you've got a full tank. It's no point changing strategy when the best of you is behind you in a fight, because that's his domain. The second half of the fight is where he kills every fighter. So if we're judging this fight on an energy level, objectively speaking, we would go the best of Tyson Fury ended at the end of the 6th round, in my opinion.
Yep.
And the 7th round was not very eventful. He was clearly on the decline in that, and then Usyk was going to ramp the pressure up then. So you've left the best of you in that first half of the fight. I don't think that was a choice in his mind to not follow up the uppercut. I think he's thinking at that point, I don't fucking have the energy to follow this uppercut up, even if I wanted, because the best of me is behind me, because Usyk has drained that out of me at this point. I think the best thing for Fury in a rematch is to accept, I am not going to win the second half of the fight with you. So I need to plan for your downfall within the first half of the fight and go after him, because that's, with that long reach, as much as he was catching Usyk, he was catching him on the end of that reach. He wasn't punching through him the way Usyk was when he was coming at him at the times. And I think with Fury, the most powerful I've seen Fury at was against Deontay Wilder, where he went after him, and he was going through him from the get-go as the aggressor. I would prefer to see Fury do that with Usyk in order to change the result. Can you catch Usyk on a shot where he's coming in on a one-shot punch? Potentially. It's very hard, though. A fighter of that level, you're going to have to make it a sustained beating where he's unable to possibly recover. And I think the strategy was too much like AJ, too much like Bellew, not identical, because Fury's got better skills on the back foot than they have, in my opinion. But he allowed the aggressive fighter to take over.
Do you think he planned to box like that?
Honestly, we talked about this before. On the one hand, when I heard Shane Fury talk about the fight beforehand, he was very confident that he was going to be the bully in there. And that made me go, oh, Shane doesn't usually talk shit like this guy. Maybe he's going to be completely dominant in there. But Usyk can be that aggressive fighter because he knows I've got more energy than you have, so I'm going to press you back. But if... You tell me, what do you think?
No, I don't think he prepared to box like that. I think he did prepare to be a hyper-aggressive version of Tyson Fury that was definitely going in there looking for a stoppage.
Imagine you've been sparring as the aggressive fighter and you get in there and Usyk just puts you on the back foot and makes you feel like the smaller man.
You mentioned Anthony Joshua and Tony Bellew there. I think both of them would admit that they probably did that as well. In terms of, I don't think even Bellew...
It was close to Bellew, wasn't it? Because AJ spent a lot of that fight right in the middle, with Usyk kind of moving laterally and making him miss and making him pay. Whereas Bellew was a lot more on the back foot like Fury.
But do you think that Bellew, coming in off the back of a knockout win over Ilunga Makabu,
David Haye,
couple of knockout wins over David Haye, do you really think Tony Bellew went in there with no belief that I can get to this guy and I can stop this guy? I think that the way that you saw Tony Bellew box, definitely the way you saw that Anthony Joshua boxed in the first fight, and the way that you see Tyson Fury box, is something that just happens when you get in a ring with Usyk. It doesn't matter how you've prepared, that is how you end up boxing when you get in a ring with him. And when we look at...
This is why I feel like Usyk is the dominant force in the division, is because he fights the way he fights against everyone, and you all have to figure him out. What he's doing is the answer to all of you. That's a problem that someone needs to figure out, and what none of them have done is run at him and gone, fuck this, let's have it. And it's funny, but like, it's ironic because you think styles make fights. Who could have the answer? And you're literally thinking, me. You need a one-shot kill from Deontay Wilder at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know who can do it, you know?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I very much think that is the way that Usyk gets beat. And there will be a point, regardless, unless he was to retire tomorrow or whatever, if Usyk has another 5-6 fights and he's fighting the top contenders each time, Oleksandr Usyk will get beat. That's in my opinion. I've watched boxing for years, studied the 90s, the 80s. Oleksandr Usyk will get beat.
He's at least capable of being beaten. He's just being not the biggest man in the division. One bad shot, like we've seen heavyweight boxing for too long. Anyone can go down. Yeah. With these guys, you can't fuck around too long. And for me, that's why I kind of want him to retire, to be honest, because I think what he's achieved is so special. To have wins over AJ and Fury when you're a cruiserweight coming up, it's so unbelievable that, like, why do you then want to go and fuck around with anyone other than those two? Like, no one else is rated as high as those two. All right, he might want the legacy, but, like, is it worth all those risks that are out there when you've already beaten the two best guys?
Yep, I'd agree with that, and I completely understand that. I do think that we saw... You could maybe look at Marius Bradis and maybe one or two other fights from Usyk's reign at cruiserweight, and you could say that they would be Usyk's toughest tests. But I do genuinely think that we saw Usyk hit way more than he's ever been hit in a fight. We definitely saw that...
I think this was the hardest fight.
Yeah.
I'll give Fury that. It was the most damage Usyk has ever taken, and that was why Fury deserves to say, I'm your hardest fight. Yeah.
And if you think about anyone that has either had a rematch with Usyk or a fight like maybe a Bradis fight in there that you could say could possibly warrant a rematch, I personally would say that I feel that Tyson Fury has the best chance of beating him in a rematch out of anyone that he's ever faced. However, that isn't me saying I think Tyson Fury is going to win a rematch with Usyk. I think that the adjustments are probably more there to be made on Tyson Fury's side. But that being said, he'd need to make the adjustments.
I just think he's got to be fair to Fury, I think he's got a good brain. And I think he understands boxing. So, all right, you've been beaten up, but you've got 12 rounds of data, and I think Fury is capable of thinking about this long and hard. And like with AJ in the second fight, there was no adjustments, or very, very little. All right, you went after him a little bit more. It wasn't enough. It was not. You need to transform a lot more your game plan, and I think Fury is capable of that.
So, what do you think Fury does? What if you're Fury and you need to win this? Do you now treat this as Hagler versus Hearns? Do you think, right, 3-4 round fight, I'm going in there with you, and I understand that I might go out, finishing my career getting chinned here, but this needs to be.
Well, the way I look at it is, all right, he didn't go down and out in that fight, but the thing that fighters don't want to see is them getting beaten up in a way that Fury was for the legacy. So you've already taken a loss. You've already lost in a pretty bad way towards the end of that fight. So what's the harm in going after him and knocking him? You get knocked out so fucking well. Now's the time to risk it. Undisputed championship, the whole reputation on the line now. You can get this win back. You might as well go for him. Personally, though, I don't know if he'll do that because he's been making some mixed noises. Though, right after the fight, I want the rematch. Later, well, we'll talk and we'll see what happens. It may be that he goes, let's do AJ. That's a more winnable fight for me, and then work my way back to Usyk, which I think in Fury's mind, Usyk will now be on a bit of a pedestal in his mind, but AJ isn't. And I think that would be a one for the confidence builder. Bash AJ all over in his head and then go and take Usyk again.
It's a bit of a risky confidence builder, isn't it?
It's fucking right it is, mate. But you know what? It's tricky because a lot of people are now saying, and then look, after the Ngannou fight, I was like, AJ'd smash him in that state. And I still believe if that version of Fury turns up, that's what would happen. But now we've got a lot of data to say Fury did more damage to Usyk than AJ did, but he took more damage from Usyk, and I don't think that's a coincidence either. I think the more you fight fire with Usyk, the bigger the fire gets, and the more you get burned in the process, right? Great analogy, Brian. But I genuinely think like that's the fight that everyone wants. No one really is craving a rematch with Fury as much as they are for the AJ Fury argument to be settled once and for all. And if I'm His Excellency, I'd want to make that fight, but it feels like they've mentioned October, so let's see.
When you look at Oleksandr Usyk, 37 years old, I think he is now. He's getting on. He's coming towards the end of his career. Obviously, he's got a tremendous, years and years of amateur boxing as well. And
he said about 40 would be how long he wants to box till. So a few more years.
Okay, so he's got a few more years. But if we are looking at the fact that he is undisputed, that is going to come with its problems in terms of keeping hold of the belts. And
they're removing one in the next week or so.
Exactly. So the route that I would love to see is Oleksandr Usyk goes in with the winner of the IBF title fight, which will obviously, I'm thinking if it's going to get removed this week, it's going to go between Dubois and Hrgovic. An ideal scenario, of course, I'll back the Brit in Dubois. An ideal scenario, because we've seen Usyk in with Dubois, you'd want Hrgovic to win that. If Usyk was to box Hrgovic and Tyson Fury was to box Anthony Joshua, that there for me cements the man who has the right to challenge Usyk. And there's every chance that we might end up then seeing a trilogy fight between AJ and Usyk. But I do think off the back of the Tyson Fury we saw the other night, I would very much put him, rightly so now, as the second man in the heavyweight division. I'd put AJ below him. And I think that the only real answer we'll get to who the better out of them two is we see them in together next. So
yeah, it's incredibly close. It's never felt... At different points of their careers, they were both in completely different eyes of the public, right? So at one point, AJ went and done the demolition job on Klitschko. Meanwhile, Fury was falling away in his personal life. Fury then comes back. AJ takes a loss. So now Fury's top dog. We never had the answer. We just had an opinion based on what version of them was around at the time. Now AJ's come back. Now Fury's come back, but they've both been beaten by Usyk. It's the perfect time to do it now, especially because with the way Fury's treated his body, as much as I was impressed with what Fury showed in there, I'm versus AJ, I still think AJ is the more conditioned athlete. AJ was able to stay with Usyk energy-wise in a better fashion than Usyk. Than Fury was. I felt like, but Fury did give more earlier on. So
I feel like we saw the best and the worst come out of Tyson Fury, and the best being, my God, mate, like I know you'll think I'm looking through Fury tinted glasses here. We've not produced a heavyweight like Tyson Fury since Lennox Lewis from this country in terms of the natural ability, which is what we saw. But then in terms of the worst, we did see his legs start to slow down, and maybe it would have happened if he had lived the life of the ultimate professional. But you've got to look at it and go, is that all the years of maybe not living a boxer's lifestyle catching up with you?
You know, Fury, we all say, wow, doesn't he move well for a big lad? Wow, isn't it mad how fit he is, considering how much body fat you're carrying? Yeah, that is all true. But if you'd led a cleaner life, if you'd stayed roughly in a similar shape to what you had when you were with Klitschko, would you be fighting better now? Absolutely he would. So some of the slowing down is just his own fault. He definitely takes months off where he's not training properly. How can you put all that weight on? And with AJ not doing that, I think that does give AJ, I don't know about you, but for quite a long time, I remember thinking, Fury's got a better gas tank than AJ. AJ always gasses, you know. Now I'm looking at it going, I'm not sure anymore. That gas tank that Fury used to have, it feels like life is catching up on him. But we'll see.
So, if you had to put your money on it, Tyson Fury's next fight, does he fight again? Does he rematch Usyk? Or do we see Turkey Al-Sheikh and the boys over in Saudi swoop in here and put a Fury AJ fight on next?
Oh, God. I'm really 50-50 between Usyk and AJ. If I was him, I wouldn't fight Usyk next. If I was him, I'd want to go and fight someone else and then come back and fight Usyk. But
there's a worry, though. What if Usyk takes on someone in the meantime and gets beat? I know that seems highly unlikely from what we've seen of him, but...
Also for Fury, I feel like his ego is like, I want to get right back in there with Usyk and put this right. But he's got clever people around him. I'm going to go AJ next. I hope it's AJ. But, I mean, everything says it's not that.
And in terms of, I think both, you know, like, if I'm being completely honest, man, I'm a Tyson Fury fan. I was very unsure as to what Tyson Fury had left. And I've come away from the Usyk fight understanding that by no means has Tyson Fury got many fights left. This is the end of Tyson Fury's career now. But I do think he's got two good performances in him still, and if they could be, you know, one against AJ and then bowing out with a fight against Usyk, I think that would definitely whet the appetite for me. So very, very excited to see what happens with it. If you're not already, we were live from the Pain Game the other night. I think that's one of the best streams we've ever done. I loved the other night's stream. So
I've been memed a lot.
Yeah. So head over to the Pain Game. It is linked in the description. Thank you once again for joining us, and I will see you all in the next one.